About 8 years ago, I bought this welder. It's a Lotus. It's an Asian-made machine, and honestly, I love this machine. It's very versatile. It does stick welding, does Tig welding, and it also is a plasma cutter. And the plasma cutter is actually a 50 amp plasma cutter, so quite powerful. I really use the plasma cutter a lot. It's probably the most often used tool on it. And then underneath on this setup that I did with the cart, I've also got a MIG welder underneath. It's the one thing this didn't have, and I wish they had a provision to do an external spool or something like that, because the electronics in here certainly could support it with just a few mods. But anyways, the model is LTPAC2500 if you're interested. But the video is actually not about the welder. The one shortcoming I found with this welder is the TIG gun that came with it. I mean, it's alright, it does a job for small stuff, you know, for steel and stainless. But what I found is welding aluminum, anything that has any thickness to it, it's just not powerful enough. It's only rated for 150 amps, whereas the welder is rated for 250 amps for the TIG welding. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a great TIG welder. You know, I do well with the MIG. I can do stick pretty decent. I'm only really beginning with TIG. TIG is, from everything I understand, it's one of the hardest welding methods there is, at least of the basic ones. You know, and I do find with steel, you know, whether it's stainless or plain steel, but the aluminum is really tricky. But I think a lot of the trouble I was having is I just can't get enough heat into the work, and when I start really pumping it up, I end up overheating the torch because I'm running close to the full 250 amps on it. So recently I bought a water-cooled torch, and of course with a water-cooled torch you need a water cooler. Then the water cooler is more than the torch. The torch I only bought for a little over 100, but a good water cooler is going to run you at least about 250, and I think they go up over 500. So there's not that much to a water cooler. So project is I'm building a water cooler. So let's take a look. So this is a work in progress, and it's a bit of a mess, so bear with me. I've already well into this, and I'm not going to detail every step of what I'm doing, but I just want to give some ideas as to the general idea of the project. It's the kind of thing when you get into it, if you decide to do something like this, you'll be doing your own innovations as well, but it's good to have some ideas to start with. So anyways, this is the torch that I got, if we can see this here. I don't have the end on it, but you got 3 lines. You got a water in, a water out, and you have the argon to feed. Now on the way the power goes through, instead of on an air-cooled setup where they run the power line through the argon line, on the water-cooled ones, what they do is it's on this large one here, which is the water return. So the power comes up through the warm water return. So what I'm using here for the case, this is just an old computer case, and just return it back here. I'm installing, this is the radiator I'm using is it's a transmission cooler radiator, which they're really cheap. You can buy them online. They're just for automotive, you know, truck transmissions and stuff. This is a 4-loop one. You can get bigger ones too. And I've ordered a pair of 120 millimeter computer fans. They'll be mounted in here. And I'm going to come back to that because there are some issues. This isn't the final way it's going to get mounted. For the water pump, this is just an inexpensive water pump that you can get on eBay. They're about 18 to 20 bucks. This is one of the higher grade ones in this size. It's rated for a higher temperature. I think it'll go up to about 100 degrees C if the motor is not immersed in water. If you immerse it in water, it's good for 60 C. I'm going to try to immerse because I really don't think it's going to get much hotter than that as long as the fans are running good. I'll monitor the temperature on it. If it looks like it's an issue, then I'll mod a little bit and do the pump external. But it's a lot easier to just dunk the pump inside the tank. So our tank this is just something from Walmart, just storage stuff. And that cover just clips on and everything dunks down in, and it's got provisions. We can open the cap up here to refill it. And this case has an easy removable cover, so that was one of the choices on this cover. So this whole setup is going to mount inside here once the hoses are out of the way. They'll be routed up the back here, so there'll be enough room to easily get that in and out. And so here we've got our warm water return from the hose, from the torch, and that is routing up directly into the radiator, and then the return from the radiator will go back to our coolant tank for the storage, and the pump will be in here as I just showed you, and the output from the torch is going to go to another port on here, which will be the feed to the torch. So some of the challenges, one of the things that I have to do here is everything all the water system has to be insulated electrically from the case, because you're feeding the welder current to it and there's voltage to it, and that has a bias to the outlet ground. And this case, you definitely, where it's a metal case, you don't want it to be floating and charged with the voltage from your welding. Plus the power supply that's in here, it's grounded to begin with, so this case will be grounded. So definitely you don't want any bridging or connection between your power lead to your torch to the chassis or ground. So this is going to be my faceplate where the fittings for the torch connect, and I've milled this out already. I'm just about done with this part, and this is going to slide in the back like that, and I've got 2 screws that'll hold that in. So that's going to be my warm water return. And hold on a second here. Okay, so I found the fittings. They were still on the hoses. So these will go in the face just like that, and the hoses will be connected to the back side. There's enough material here that once these are fed on, and that all goes up, so that'll be in the face. Show this here, we'll pop this in. Get it all lined up here. So minus a few screws here, because I'm still fitting this together, but it's going to go something like this. That's going to be a power switch. I may put a pilot light in there too, I don't know. It's not really necessary. I'll hear it with the fans. That gives a little intake where the power supply is, and a little more airflow to get pushed out. I'm going to push the air out the back. And the cover also has intakes on it. So if we pull this out again, I'll carve this out so these will just fit in like that. And this one is the argon hose. So this end will go up to the argon fitting on my welder, which has a solenoid in it. So whenever you pull the trigger, or if you're using the pedal, the solenoid comes on and the argon flows, and it's timed for the shut off. So that's the welder end, and this will go on the upper one like that, on the inside. So that'll all route through, and it'll just route out the back, and that's the power lead. It goes out to the welder as well. And on this fitting, you can see this is the warm water return. So you've got your power lead from the welder connects with an electrical connection to that warm water return, and then runs up through the torch. So one of the challenges I'm going to come up with, and I have to figure out, is this radiator back here. Right now I've just got it mounted on the metal, and that's not permissible. I have to isolate that. So I would need to come up with some way to get the fans mounted through here and have this insulated with some sort of plastic. I may use a sheet of plastic like I did on the front here. Just pick another one up and cut this all out on the back, so that this is just one big opening, and it was just enough to mount the plastic and fit it up that way. Or I may print something on the 3D printer. I'm not sure yet. We'll get to that later. So that's where I'm at, and once I get a few things worked out here and get it all fit together, then I'll come back and show the finished product here.